In the Bhagavad Gita, there's this one piece of advice that is so powerful, but man, is it easy to get wrong. After setting the warrior Arjuna straight on who he really is, his guide Krishna drops an unavoidable truth. You have to act. But he adds a condition, a little twist that changes the entire game. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
This is it, the core of the whole thing, the engine of what we call karma yoga. Krishna says, act but without attachment. And immediately you can feel the paradox in that, right? How can you possibly act? How can you pour your heart into something without being attached to what happens? It sounds totally impossible.
And that's the big question, isn't it? Because detachment in this context doesn't mean being passive or, just not caring about anything. Not at all. What the Gita is actually laying out here is a super smart way to engage with life, a way to be all in, totally committed without burning yourself out or getting crushed by disappointment.
Okay, so the first thing most of us trip over is that word detachment. We hear it and we think of like a hermit on a mountain, someone who's walked away from it all. But Krishna just completely rejects that idea right from the start.
His logic is just so simple and so solid. He basically says, look, our very nature is to act. Our bodies are made to move, and our minds, they're never quiet. They're always thinking and planning. You literally can't just switch it all off. In fact, he points out that even deciding not to do something, well, that's an action too. It's a choice, and it has its own set of consequences. So true inaction, it's just not possible.
And this just completely reframes Arjuna's whole crisis on the battlefield. When he wanted to throw down his weapons and just walk away, it wasn't some noble, peaceful protest. It was an action completely driven by fear and utter confusion. So Krishna's point is crystal clear. The question isn't if you're going to act. The only real question is how you're going to act.
All right, so if we're all stuck acting, what's so bad about attachment? This is where we have to be super clear, because the Gita's definition of attachment is very, very specific, and it's probably not what you think it is.
Attachment isn't about caring. It's not about loving your job or your family or wanting to do well. No. In the Gita's world, attachment is when you take your identity, your very sense of who you are, your self-worth, your emotional stability, and you glue it to the result of what you're doing. It's when your inner monologue sounds like, if this project succeeds, I'm a success. If it fails, then I'm a failure.
And once you do that, you kick off this really destructive chain reaction. First, you merge your identity with the outcome. All of a sudden, your self-worth is on the line with every single thing you do. Naturally, your fear of failure just goes through the roof. And what happens when we're terrified? Our decision-making goes right out the window. Our judgment gets cloudy, and we start making bad calls.
So if tying our ego to results is the poison, then what's the cure? Well, this leads us to probably the single most famous, and almost definitely the most misunderstood, verse in the entire Bhagavad Gita.
Now, it is so easy to read this the wrong way. It does not mean just act like a slob and pretend you don't care what happens. Not at all. This is actually a very precise instruction about where to put your focus, where to pour 100% of your energy. Think about it like this. Reality is split into two zones. In one zone, you have everything that is 100% yours to control. Your intention, how much effort you bring, your integrity. That's your domain. But then there's this other zone with all the stuff you just can't control. The timing, how other people are going to react, just the randomness and complexity of the world. The Gita's advice is simple. Live entirely in that first zone. Focus only on what's yours.
And the freedom that comes from this shift, it's huge. When you pour all of your energy into the quality of your actions, the part you actually control, and you learn to genuinely let go of the results, the part you don't, you unlock this incredible mental clarity. That constant, nagging anxiety about what's going to happen, it just starts to fade away.
But wait, does this mean we're supposed to turn into unfeeling robots? This is another massive misunderstanding. The idea that detachment means you just don't feel anything. Actually, the Gita is saying the complete opposite.
On the one hand, people think detachment means a total lack of feeling. But the reality is, it means finding stability within your feelings. It's not about being indifferent. It's about giving your absolute best effort without being crippled by anxiety. It's not about running away from responsibility. It's about taking on responsibility without your ego calling all the shots.
So let's just be absolutely clear on this. The Gita is not telling you to stop caring. It's telling you to stop outsourcing your inner peace to things outside of your control. It's about learning how to be passionate, how to be driven, and at the same time, how to keep that inner core of yours steady and unshakable. This isn't about burying your emotions. It's a profound form of emotional intelligence.
And this is where this ancient idea just becomes so unbelievably relevant to our lives today. Because this entire mindset, it's a direct antidote to one of the biggest problems we face, burnout.
I mean, just think about what causes burnout, really. It happens when our job becomes our entire identity. It's when our self-worth is on a crazy roller coaster every single day, flying high with a success and crashing with a failure. That is exactly what the Gita is talking about when it uses the word attachment. It's the same thing, just in a 21st century office.
Now compare that to the solution here. When you practice this idea of detached action, you're not making decisions based on fear anymore, so your judgment gets way better. That constant crushing pressure starts to ease up. You become so much more resilient because one setback doesn't feel like the end of the world. It's the ultimate recipe for striving for excellence without destroying yourself in the process.
And that right there is the key. The goal was never to be free from having to act. It's not about escaping life. The real goal is to find freedom inside of your actions, to be fully engaged, fully present, but to do it all from a place of inner strength.
So, to wrap it all up, Krishna's message here is incredibly precise and powerful. Go all in, act fully, care deeply about what you do. But whatever you do not chain your fundamental inner stability to an outcome you can't fully control.
So, we want to leave you with a question to think about. Just imagine for a second. What could you do? What could you create? What could you achieve if you just weren't afraid to fail? If failure no longer had the power to define who you are? It's a pretty powerful thought.